All right, I'm gonna be watching a video about. Let's see here. It says when corruption pushes people too far in history. Bro, I love this channel, man. I love this channel. Make sure to go binge their stuff. Go watch their stuff, bro. It's really fun.
Thanks to War Thunder for helping us make this video. Today we're going over stories of when corruption pushed people too far. Battle of Athens. It's the end of 1945, and Bill White is riding a bus heading to McMinn County, Tennessee. A few months earlier, the Empire of Japan had officially surrendered, bringing an end to World War II. The bus Bill is on is filled with fellow veterans who had fought in the war, and having survived the most brutal conflict in history, they're unsurprisingly celebrating making it home alive. Bill himself was a veteran of the Battle of Tarawa and Guadalcanal, two of the bloodiest conflicts in the Pacific Theater, and like everyone else on the bus, he was excited to finally be back on American soil. Soon the soldiers see a familiar sign up ahead and begin to cheer. Welcome to Athens, the friendly city. The men were finally home. But as their bus pulled into the station, these veterans did not receive the warm welcome they were expecting. The doors open, and immediately armed deputies storm onto the bus and begin harassing the soldiers. Bill watches as some of his fellow GIs are stripped of the cash they have on them, cuffed, and arrested for intoxication. The Athens that these brave men had left years ago was gone, and in its place was a living hell. See, a decade earlier in 1936, while many of these returning vets were still children, a wealthy and well-connected man named Paul Cantrell had got himself elected as sheriff of the town. His main campaign promise was to get rid of a pretty dumb law called the fee system, which allowed him and his deputies to get paid a fee for every arrest they made. Most people in the town agreed that this system would be easy to exploit if someone corrupt ever became sheriff, so they voted Cantrell in by a very slim margin to fulfill his campaign promise. Well, as soon as he was in, Cantrell did two things. One, he began rigging every future election to ensure he would always win, and two, he reneges on his campaign promise to get rid of the fee system, and instead began to arrest as many citizens as he could to exploit it. He would log up to 115 arrests in a single weekend, and in the span of 10 years, the sheriff's department collected over $300,000 in fees. That's about $5 million in today's money, and all of it went straight into the pockets of Cantrell and his henchmen.
Yeah, must have been good to be a cop back then, man. You know, so you get to do whatever you want. Hey, I arrested you. Pay up. You're not getting out of jail, though. Just pay up, just pay up.
Eventually, Cantrell goes on to become a state senator in 1942, but he puts people in place to ensure his political machine can continue to run Athens. When the war breaks out, McMinn County sends about 10% of its population to fight in the war, and while the young men were away fighting overseas, the Cantrell machine tightened its grip on the town. By 1946, they had complete control of the government, elections, and the local media. Many throughout the town clung to the only hope they had, that one day, when the GIs got back, things would be different. Now adults, the returning veterans, were getting their first taste of just how bad the corruption in their town had become. They had all received a lump sum from the government known as mustering out pay for their time.
Yeah, bro, I hate that. I hate that. You know what I'm saying? Like, the veterans deserve better treatment, bro. Like, I'm not a veteran myself, bro. I don't really know many people that are veterans. But, like, just hearing and, like, talking to some of them, like, just walking by, you know, they're telling me their stories. And I'm like, yo, that's awful. You came home and they treated you like what? And you only get one day? That's crazy, man. You fought for a country, for freedom and all this. I mean, I dare I say it, they deserve a full month. Like, Black History Month. Like, you know, Black History Month, my butt cheeks, bro. It's Black history is just like destroyed now. I think the veterans that fought for freedom and all this stuff so we can have freedom of speech, just like I'm doing right now, should get a whole month.
Served in the war, and this extra cash made them prime targets of the sheriff's department. Many vets were arrested in bars for intoxication or on the street for minor infractions. The GIs grow tired of being constantly harassed and paying
I have trauma.
These fees, so they begin meeting in secret to drink and talk about the state of their town. In these meetings, they decide that this corrupt political machine needs to be broken, and so they come up with an idea. They create a nonpartisan party called the GI ticket and run 3 Republicans and 2 Democrat servicemen in various races with the goal to get Cantrell's men out of office and end his control of the town. Excited with their new mission, the veterans take to the streets to campaign. They drive around with loudspeakers and go door knocking to hand out flyers. They promise the people of Athens that despite all the previous elections, this time their votes will be counted as cast. Filled with hope that the political machine that ruined their town would finally be stopped, the townspeople come out in droves to support the GIs. But word gets to Cantrell, and not wanting to give up the racket he had run for over a decade, he decides to come back to Athens and run for sheriff again against a veteran named Knox Henry. Calls are made, and the local deputies increase their harassment of the GIs. Threatening phone calls are made in the middle of the night, and other veterans are assaulted on the streets while putting up their campaign posters. Troubled by this, Bill White asks his fellow GIs at their weekly meeting, "Do you think they're gonna let you win this election? Those people been taking these elections for years with a bunch of armed thugs. If you never got the guts enough to stand up and fight fire with fire, you ain't gonna win." His fellow veterans disagreed. They had promised the people of Athens a free and fair election, and they all believed that it was going to happen. But Bill...
Nah, bro. What you don't remember, what you forgot is that this is the government. Hey, whoever makes me the most money on, you get to win. That means the rules, dog. That means just the rules. I just work here. Bro, I just work here. I just got hired today, so.
Feared the worst, and soon all of his fears would come true. In the week leading up to the election, the town sheriff, Pat Mansfield, who had deep ties to Cantrell, deputizes 200 new agents. Many were ex-convicts and criminals themselves, and nearly all of them were from out of state. Regardless, the veterans remained undeterred and continued to go out into the community, promising the people that their votes will be counted as cast and helping many citizens pay the poll tax required to vote. Finally, election day arrives on August 1st, 1946, and Mansfield and Cantrell send their 200 armed deputies out to the 4 polling stations in town. It did not take long for...
What do you mean? The polling state? Oh, that's how they voted. Yes. Okay. They're polling. I was like, is this a sport? Oh, word. Look at my neck. Look at the unevenness of it. My facial structure. Hold on. Let me just. There you go. If we right here and then hit the minus. Okay, we're good. It's just like the way I sit. Hold on, I got it. Whew, there you go. See how
the trouble to begin, as the first veteran poll watcher is arrested at 9:30 a.m. At 3 p.m., a black man named Tom Gillespie enters his polling location and is stopped by a deputy named Windy Wise, who hurls a racial slur at him and tells him that he can't vote here. Gillespie insists on his rights as a citizen, but before he can finish, Windy Wise beats him to the ground with brass knuckles. In a panic, Gillespie drops his ballot and tries to run for the door, but Wise, wanting to send a message, draws his pistol and shoots him in the back. In other polling locations, GIs are shocked as they watch minors vote unquestioned, and when they step in to challenge these ballots, they are beaten and arrested by Mansfield's deputies. The day ends.
What?
The veterans watch as Cantrell's men begin to take ballot boxes to the county jail to be counted in
minors,
private.
Bro.
They realized that they had all been made liars and fools. Defeated, many of the GIs go home while a handful of others return to their campaign headquarters. There, Bill White watches as the small group of dejected veterans slump silently in their chairs, and this pisses him off. He stands and shouts, "You call yourself GIs? You go over there and fight for 3 and 4 years. You come back and you let a bunch of draft dodgers who stayed here where it was safe and you are making it safe for them push you around? If you people don't stop this, and now is the time and place, you people wouldn't make a pimple on a fighting GI's ass. Get your guns." The soldiers look up at Bill and realize he had been right all along. They rush out into the night and find their fellow veterans and tell them to get their guns and meet back at headquarters.
It's time for revolution. Revolution! Yeah! Sorry.
The night was not done yet, and within an hour, every veteran in town had returned, armed and ready to fight. They head to the National Guard Armory and convince the man on guard to let them borrow the weapons stored there.
Bro, I strongly think you should let us borrow the guns. Strongly. Just holding a gun to his head.
70 additional rifles and 2 Thompson submachine guns are soon loaded onto a truck, and together the GIs head to the county jail where Cantrell and his men were secretly counting the ballots. They arrive at the jail at 9 p.m. to find it barricaded and guarded by 55 deputies. Bill splits his group in two, and with military precision, the veterans take their positions around the building. The GIs shout for Cantrell to bring out the ballot boxes, a request that he defiantly refuses. With Election Day coming to an end and with no other option, Bill White draws his pistol and fires the first shot. Immediately, his men follow his lead, and the jail is pelted with rounds from every veteran in the town. The submachine guns open fire, tearing holes into the walls of the building, and many of the deputies run inside for cover. Cantrell's thugs try to fire back, but against these battle-hardened veterans, their attempts were laughable.
Right. I'm saying you guys fight against guys that were just in war. You guys didn't even go to war. You pathetic people. Keep it nice. Where'd the tank come from?
Booyah! How do you like them apples?
Uh-oh. Wait.
A real beauty, ain't she? Anybody here ever seen something like this before?
Wait. It's the
I
ad.
have.
It's the ad.
Me
It's the
too,
ad.
Normandy. What are you guys, a bunch of veterans from World War II or something? Yeah. Well, this is kind of awkward. You know, you guys aren't making this easy for me to get the ad read. But hey, would you like to hear about War Thunder, the greatest combat game ever made?
Bro, get your money.
I think it's time to hit the dusty trail. Hey, good luck stamping out the corruption in your town and stuff.
Get your money, dog. Get your money.
All right, boys, let them have it. Hearing gunfire, the townspeople begin to rush out of their homes to see what is going on. And when they find out the GIs had Cantrell and his men trapped in the jail, they erupt into cheers. They rush down and take cover from behind parked cars and buildings, not wanting to miss Cantrell's end. Other citizens took this as the sign to join the fight, and they began rioting, flipping over police cruisers and burning any car with out-of-state plates that they assumed to belong to the new deputies. As the battle wears on into the early morning hours, the GIs begin using Molotov cocktails to coax Cantrell out, but they are unable to throw them far enough to reach the jail. At 2 a.m., an ambulance arrives at the scene, and the GIs assume that they are there to treat the injured inside the building. They hold their fire and watch 2 shadowy figures jump into the back of the ambulance before it speeds away. It was only later discovered that these 2 men were Cantrell and Mansfield, who used the ambulance to run from the vets. Once the ambulance was gone, the veterans began taping sticks of dynamite together and throwing them at the jail like grenades. The first attempt lands on the car of one of the deputies, and it is blasted high into the night sky.
Dang. Almost even fun to watch, Loki. If you're like just like a normal person. Revolution!
Crowd goes wild as the veterans launch 3 more bundles of TNT into the air. One lands on the roof of the jail, blowing a hole into it. Another blasts a hole in the jail wall, and the final bundle lands on Sheriff Mansfield's car and blows it to bits, causing the crowd to go even crazier. By 3:30 a.m., the remaining deputies trapped in the jail had
Nah, we're killing you. Me? Nah, I don't take hostages, man. I don't. I'm too tired. You gotta go. We all going.
blasted into submission, and they surrendered to Bill White and his men. The veterans lowered their weapons and stepped forward to accept the surrender, but the townspeople, who had endured a decade under Cantrell's thumb, were not satisfied.
Yeah, bro. Hey. He beat me last week and took my money on. I need to get my get back. That's what I'm saying.
They wanted their own justice, they rushed into the jail, throwing off the GIs who tried to restrain them. Windy Wise, the racist deputy that shot Tom Gillespie in the back.
Okay, now that's justice. You want to talk about, man, there's a lot of racists, but there's also a lot more nicer and better people than they are racists, bro, trust.
Was found, and he became the favorite target of the mob, who beat him unconscious. The veterans entered the jail and found rigged ballots that would have delivered Cantrell a landslide win. When they recounted the actual votes, every single GI ticket candidate had won their race. As the dawn breaks, the town of Athens is overcome with the collective euphoria that they had not felt in over a decade. Cantrell's machine was gone. Despite stealing weapons from a federal armory and blasting holes into the local jail, none of the veterans involved in the Battle of Athens were ever tried for a crime. In fact, the only person to face any jail time from the event was the deputy, Windy Wise. Johnson County War. It's the 1880s in the Wyoming Territory, and things are going great for cattle baron Frank Wolcott. For the past 10 years, he and his friends had figured out
these dumb names. No, not dumb. They're just not names I would think of hearing, you know?
how to use the vast amounts of public lands in the region to create what was essentially an infinite money glitch. Every year, Wolcott and the other large cattle ranchers would release their animals into the wild and let them graze on the open range all year before rounding them back up again in the fall. By doing this, Wolcott and his friends didn't have to pay for the land, feed, and water for their animals, giving them ridiculous profit margins. This made them all insanely rich, and so they formed the Wyoming Stock Growers Association, or WSGA for short, and through this organization, they would socialize at the exclusive Cheyenne Club, rubbing elbows with the local and national elite. They had money, power, and influence, and felt untouchable. But everything changes in
A rich white man. Nice. Cool. Very chill.
1867, when the Union Pacific Railroad reaches Wyoming and thousands of settlers begin flooding into the territory to take advantage of the Homestead Act of 1862.
Is that a rat? Wait, what?
Begin flooding into the territory to take advantage of the Homestead Act of 1862.
Oh, it's a cat.
Many of these homesteaders were Civil War veterans, recently freed slaves, and other people who were down on their luck, and they were all looking to start fresh out west. These homesteaders quickly claimed their lands, and unfortunately for Frank Wolcott, these lands were the same ones he and his friends were using for their insanely profitable cattle businesses. Homesteaders began putting up fences, blocking off food and water for their own crops and animals, and soon, many of them began trying to raise cattle themselves. Seemingly overnight,
that sounds
the money printing machine that Wolcott and his friends had enjoyed for 2 decades began to sputter.
2 decades is about like 10 years, bro. 20 or 10 years. It has to be. Because if you have that much money, right? Like, if you've been look at you, bro. You look like you're over like your third. Bro, $1 million takes a good. Oh, no, it doesn't actually. Not anymore. Not in this day and age. But like, what they had back then, they'd be jolly, bro. They don't need no more money on.
Don't get me wrong, they were still making a ton of money, but this decrease in profits was simply unacceptable.
Yeah, bro, how dare. Last month, I made 10 million, now I'm only making 7 million. What's going on? We got to stop these people.
So, in an attempt to put a stop to all this, Wolcott pushes for the passing of the Maverick Act, which made his organization, the WSGA, the official owner of any unbranded calf. See, mix-ups were common in this free-range ranching system, and homesteaders often ended up with unbranded cattle in their herd at roundup. With mix-ups so common, this new bill essentially turned every independent rancher into a cattle rustler, which, on the frontier, was a crime punishable by death. The bill passes, and in the summer of 1889, a 29-year-old homesteader named Ella Watson is found with a few extra unbranded cattle in her herd. Her neighbor, a member of Wolcott's organization, finds out and immediately reports her and her husband to the organization for cattle rustling. Within a few days, a mob of WSGA ranchers armed with rifles show up on her doorstep, and they order Ella and her husband into a wagon at gunpoint. A neighbor watches the event unfold and, fearing the worst, races to the sheriff's office to report what is happening, and they ride as quickly as they can back to—
No shot. And he's like, I'm actually a part of them. There was like, my brother? Oh, nah, he's fine. He has money. He gave me some money, so he's all good. I'm gonna turn a blind eye to him because he's rich.
Watson's ranch. But when they get there, they are horrified to see Wolcott's men in the process of tightening nooses around Ella and her husband's necks. The mob had decided to skip the legal formalities and deal with these cattle rustlers right then and there. The sheriff quickly draws his pistol and orders the men to stop. The mob turns to look at him for a second, and then they raise their rifles and begin to fire.
No way, bro.
The sheriff runs for cover, and a gunfight breaks out at the ranch.
the cow in the background caught some damage.
The sheriff is vastly outnumbered, and Wolcott's men are doing a good job keeping him pinned down. He can't see what is happening, but soon the firing stops, and the mob goes quiet. The sheriff steps out from his hiding spot and sees Ella and her husband hanging from a tree, dead. In the following weeks, the sheriff tracks down and arrests the men responsible for the lynching of Ella Watson and her husband. And
Why don't they just lynch them? It
is set. But witnesses for the case quickly begin dying of mysterious causes. Some are found poisoned, and others simply vanish without a trace. Wolcott's organization had just gotten away with murder, and this enrages the homesteaders in the area, who retaliate by lynching the range detective who accused Watson of rustling. Feeling that justice was served, the homesteaders thought it would bring an end to the violence, but they were dead wrong. The cattle barons immediately send out gunmen to lynch more alleged rustlers, and they use their corrupt political ties to ensure any one of their henchmen that is arrested gets set free. This works for a while, and Wolcott and his gang of elites maintain their grip on the open range. But in 1891, an independent rancher named...
we are just in a corrupt system, low-key. Hey, that's what I say, guys. Get your money up, and you should be okie dokes. All right? We good. Just get your money up. You realistically don't have anything to worry about. And God. God, then money, family, job. No. God, money, job, family.
To Nate Champion, who was sick of the corruption, forms his own cattle organization to break Wolcott's monopoly. The homesteaders begin banding together, and soon his group organizes their own cattle roundups outside of the control of the WSGA. To Wolcott, this could not be allowed. Champion had to be stopped before it was too late. So, he hires a hit squad and sends them to deal with the rebellious cowboy for good. On a cold, moonless night in November, 6 shadowy figures surround a small cabin that Nate was staying in for the night. Awakened by noises outside, Champion listened carefully with his eyes closed as 2 men opened the front door and walked into the cabin. As they approach his bed, Nate can feel his heart beating out of his chest.
Nah, dude, the adrenaline rush must have been crazy. Oh, man, I would have... I'd love to be alive at this point.
And he slowly moves his hand under his pillow to grab a gun he had hidden there. He fears the worst, and when he hears the men draw their pistols, he knows what they are here to do. In one motion, Nate turns and fires on the would-be assassins. A gunfight breaks out inside the cabin.
Done for. They're done for. You're not quick enough.
And he kills the 2 men. The men waiting outside hear the gunshots and run away from the scene before Nate is able to make it outside. The news of the failed assassination makes it back to Wolcott, and he is enraged. He appoints a man wanted for murder in Texas to head up what was essentially a lynch mob he called Wolcott's Regulators. He gives this mob a list of 70 homesteaders that he wanted dead, and the first name on the list was Nate Champion. On a dark April night, Wolcott and his regulators ride into Johnson County and cut every telegraph line out of the town to prevent any calls for help. They then make their way towards KC Ranch, where Champion and his friends were staying.
Please tell me they were waiting.
2 of Nate's friends head outside to fetch some water and are surprised to find Wolcott's regulators waiting for them. They try to run, but are quickly captured. Hearing the commotion outside, another one of Nate's friends opens the door, and he is instantly shot in the stomach.
I'm gonna tell you this right now, bro. If you're doing stuff like this, carry it on you. You know, I packed that thing too, cuz I packed that thing too.
And collapses to the ground. Nate scrambles and drags him inside, but his friend quickly bleeds out in his arms. Now with confirmation that Champion is there, all hell breaks loose as the gunmen begin firing into windows. Nate fires back and takes out a few attackers, but the barrage of bullets becomes too much, and he is forced back into one of the rooms. Keeping himself close to the floor, Nate scribbles down the names of some of the attackers he had seen outside. Wolcott's regulators besieged the cabin for the entire day, but Nate was still alive inside and had not given up. Even worse, Champion had killed 4 regulators and injured many more. The sun begins to set, and in frustration, the mob decides to set the entire home on fire and be done with it. Champion, now choking on the smoke, writes a final note in his journal. The house is all fired. Goodbye, boys, if I never see you again. He tucks the journal into his pocket, grabs a revolver in one hand and a rifle in the other. He charges out the back door and opens fire on the mercenaries in a final blaze of glory, but he is immediately hit by 28 bullets. The next morning, neighbors discover Nate's body with a note pinned to his chest.
No.
Cattle thieves beware.
That's my boy, though. Why'd they have to do my boy like that?
Wolcott's wish had finally come true. Champion was dead, and he hoped things would soon be returning back to normal. But what he did not
Bro,
know...
this is just because of greedy, evil men. Not hey man, women can be greedy too, but this situation right here is because of greedy, evil men.
Was that a man who had watched Nate Champion's last stand had set out to the nearby town of Buffalo for help. He tells the sheriff there, a man named Angus, who was a supporter of the Homesteaders, what had happened, and immediately they go out into town and gather a posse of 200 men, most of whom were veterans of the American Civil War.
Nah, he said,
By the end of the day,
getting back in blood. This is what I need.
This
bro.
Posse had ridden back into...
We should really have a revolt right now on the government if we don't like it. We used to be able to do that back in the day, and now we're just too puss for them to do that.
Town with the goal of finally bringing Wolcott and his men to justice. Having stayed up all night dealing with Champion, Wolcott and his thugs were completely exhausted, but they soon find themselves on the run from Sheriff Angus and are forced into hiding in a nearby barn. The regulators opened fire on the sheriff's men, but this time, they weren't fighting homesteaders, they were fighting Civil War vets who had no problems returning the favor. A local gun store owner who was also sick of the WSGA corruption hears the battle going on and brings some high-powered rifles to the standoff. The vets happily use them to punch holes into the barn. The siege drags on, and realizing they are out...
And now you scared, huh? You have no problem taking people's lives until it's time to take yours.
Gunned, some of the regulators try to make a run for
it,
but the sheriff's men open fire and force them back inside.
Yeah.
A lone cattle baron escapes into the woods and manages to get a message to the governor, who contacts Washington, D.C. 2 Wyoming senators personally go to the White House and wake President Benjamin Harrison in the middle of the night to tell him there's a dangerous insurrection brewing in Johnson County, and soon the 6th Cavalry is sent in to put an end to the fighting. Sheriff Angus agrees to call off his men with the understanding that the military will bring Wolcott and his thugs to justice. This should be an open and shut case, as in the barn, the cavalry finds dozens of weapons, over 5,000 rounds of ammunition, and Wolcott's handwritten hit list complete with listed bounties paid for each homesteader they killed. But, as strong as the evidence was, the local judicial system was already paid off by the cattle barons, and not one of the regulators were sentenced. Wolcott himself never faced any jail time, and actually went on to become a justice of the peace. Go figure. Now, it may seem like corruption still ended up winning, and the homesteaders lost the War of Johnson County, but here's the thing. The shootout at the barn against Sheriff Angus and his posse was enough to spook the wealthy ranchers in the area so badly that soon many of them, including Wolcott, left Wyoming forever. With its membership diminished and so many of its leaders gone, the WSGA opened its doors to the very homesteaders it had been terrorizing, and the organization was completely reformed.
Good.
It no longer served the interests of just a handful of elites, but instead, it was transformed into a true association of ranchers that represented and defended the interests of all cattlemen in Wyoming. Thanks again to War Thunder for helping us make this video. Don't forget to play for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile by using our links in the pinned comment or video description.
Alright guys, thanks for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, and look at my Instagram. It's Peter Slaw and Segawa Prime. There's the same one. So is my TikTok and all of that. So yeah, y'all have a jolly night. I should go to bed. Alright, I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace.